I have for you what is called the final boss of dad jokes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hike.
Haiku.
Unsuspecting son, dad waiting with bated breath, sets the perfect trap.
Oh my God. Yeah, I walked right into that as soon as I said it.
You did. Yeah.
Hey, I fired his dad!
I think Dad has made some excellent progress today.
Your dad, he's a fun guy, right?
And I love him so much, and I think he's the greatest dad in the world.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Working on the Dad Pod. I'm Alex. He's Ethan. He's looking mildly surprised because before I started talking, we didn't say who's going to intro the episode. But here we are. We are back after not really a hiatus. You heard us on your feeds last week, but it was pre-recorded. We are back recording the night before we post on your feeds, or just moments before we post on YouTube. So just a friendly reminder to like and subscribe and share with friends, but also go look at our pretty faces. If you want this episode earlier, you're the kind of person that's up at 11 o'clock and it's like, I want to listen to Alex and Ethan talk about their wisdom of the world or whatever we're going to call our banter. Get on YouTube. That's where our episodes drop first. Tonight, we are going to be talking about traveling without your kids. Something I just did, something Ethan has coming up next month, and something that I think a lot of parents go through. And this, I'll just preface it to say, this can kind of be all encompassing, right? So I traveled without my kids for work. Previously, I've traveled for pleasure. Ethan and I had a guys trip, right? We both did it. Traveled with my partner for pleasure, without my partner. I've got a solo trip coming up without my wife. And so it kind of runs the gamut of you have to leave, you want to leave the whole family, you want to leave part of the family, and everywhere in between. But we'll start off with a little story time, get to working on the dad bod after that. But we'll start off with Ethan. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. Welcome back from your trip.
Thank you.
And I'm glad it's going to bleed perfectly into tonight's episode that we definitely planned months in advance on our schedule. So it just happened to work out.
I was perfectly. At the airport.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. Indeed. So my story is actually about us. So I have started going back to the office full time. So a lot more commuting time, a lot more steps. So I'm going through my non-working on the dad podcasts a little bit faster. And I've had some time to catch up on listening to our own show. And what has been interesting is where I currently am with regard to how I've been exercising and, working on my own health. I have been listening to us talk about this same thing like a year ago, and it has actually been really refreshing coming back to and listening to our old episodes and kind of seeing how I have progressed as a parent and also how I have progressed as a person on a weight loss journey. Some of those are regressions, big time, but sure. It really is interesting because some of the stuff we, with your daughter being just under a year older than my eldest daughter, I'm actually going through some of the stuff you were going through a year ago. So, or no, a little over a year older than my daughter. Yeah, Bad at Math podcast. Anyway, regardless, that my story is just about this podcast and how it is actually helping me, the future listener, not just the host.
So my story is, I had a great family vacation. So obviously I traveled, as I mentioned, I was traveling for work this week, but the week before I was traveling with my family for spring break. And we went up to St. Augustine with my mother-in-law, and we had a really great time. But it's really funny to me how my kids thoroughly enjoyed it, and they enjoyed all the things that St. Augustine has to offer. It's a cool city, recommended as a family destination for anybody who wants to go. But it is the oldest city in America, which was actually something that I probably knew, but definitely forgot, that it predates Plymouth Rock as a settled area. But it wasn't the English, it was the Spanish, and maybe that colors our history books a little bit in terms of, all that stuff. But Ponce de Leon, that whole crew searching for the Fountain of Youth. And I found it really interesting that my kids took to all of the unique things. There is an old fort that is a national park, or something within the National Park Service, right? And they really enjoyed that. They enjoyed all the things, but the simple things, watching my kids enjoy the simple things on our vacation is always kind of funny to me. They love exploring the new playgrounds. Always a sucker for a good playground. They will kill time, and I think it's a great outlet for them. My wife and I actually, because we're members of the Y and the YMCA, and this is just a plug for anybody that happens to have a YMCA membership. I'm not advocating that you have to join a gym there, but they do have what's called a nationwide membership. And they're not the only gym that offers this kind of transferability, but basically you have a Y membership. You can go to most any other participating Y, which I've yet to find a non-participating Y across the country. You just sign up at the desk and say, hey, I'm visiting from another thing. They fill out a couple of lines and you're good to go. And we went to the St. Augustine Y, and as a gym, it was fine. Didn't have everything ours, but their child watch area was fantastic. They had probably 20, 30 kids there every day versus like one or two when my son goes in the morning to our local one. Quite often, he's the only one there. And they had, in addition, they had like a dedicated arts and crafts room, a dedicated toy room, and a dedicated tumble room filled with like toddler level gymnastics ramps and things and cushions and balloons where they could toss the balloons around. It was quite the experience. And so my wife comes back from St. Augustine on Sunday. I fly out to Atlanta direct from Orlando, and she's actually meeting me the next day. But on Monday morning, she gets up with my son and goes, hey, we're going to go to the gym. We're going to go to the Y. And he goes, which one? And my wife goes, our normal one. He goes, I want to go to the fun one. And so I do feel bad because I do think our Y staff does a really good, they know him. Most everybody there knows him by name. And I'm like, well, I get it. I get it. There's a tumble room. But yeah, it's funny how they remember when you ask them what their favorite things are from a vacation. It's like a meal or a playground or something simple. It's not really so much about a particular destination. I will say, with the exception of like if we go to Disney World or something, then it's Disney World or Legoland or Busch Gardens or whatever. Theme parks tend to hold a special place, but I kind of think that's cool. And I find that to be a really cool reminder to just enjoy the little moments in life and in vacations as we go through those. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So so as Alex mentioned at the top of the episode, today we're talking about traveling without the kids. And I wanted to talk about this. So like Alex mentioned, he just did a work trip, one night, entirely family free. The rest of it, just him and his wife. And then my wife and I are actually going to a wedding next weekend, which we have to stay overnight. And then, as Alex alluded to, next month, I am going to a bachelor party where I am leaving my family wife included, behind. So, what I wanted to talk about was, obviously in past episodes we've talked about traveling with kids. We've also talked about time for ourselves and mental health. But what I really wanted to talk about here is that traveling solo or just you and your partner can be a lot of fun. But when you do have kids, there are the logistics of pre-travel, of making sure your kids are cared for in your absence, and also just all the schedules and everything that has to do, or any activities that happen while you're gone. So, Alex, since yours it sounded like went pretty well, why don't you talk about prepping for your trip first?
Yeah. So I've mentioned this before. Obviously, I mentioned this a couple episodes ago. We have a dog, and we previously had a cat who recently passed away. But one of the first things that we always have to think about when we're going on a vacation, no matter how many members are, like, if we're leaving the house, is care for the pets. And if we're gone for a day or two, we usually get someone off of Rover, just come by, hang out with the pets for twice a day. But any longer than a weekend trip, we generally like somebody to come and stay with them. And we use I'll plug this website again, free advertisement, but Trusted House Sitters is the website we use. Now, it's a membership. You have to sign up. You have to apply. I think you have to do some vetting. I'll be perfectly transparent that my wife took care of all of that. Both times we've used it, because we have used it. We used it when we went to St. Augustine, and we ended up getting someone who was great. And she actually sort of travels the country. She works remotely. She's able to travel a lot. And her teenage daughter goes to high school where my kids are districted to go to high school. And so she was kind of jumping at the opportunity, like, I'd love to, spend some more time with her. She lives with her dad. And so the house sitter jumped at the opportunity and seemed to have done a great job. And because she works remotely and kind of travels around of her own accord, it was really great when my wife found out that she was also going to Atlanta, that she was able to just extend her stay from leaving on Sunday to leaving the next Thursday. So that was super helpful. But I'll plug that website because my wife and I used it as house sitters when we were traveling the world in our mid-20s. And we did house sits in Australia, and we did a house sit in Spain. And we've looked at some other opportunities. It does get a little tougher with kids because people will be transparent on there. Hey, this is a good house for kids. And you know what? Those are also in high demand because all the families that have signed up for Trusted House Sitters with kids really want to jump at those versus the ones that aren't for kids. And we've looked at that for potential summer vacations. So if that's ever something, it's kind of like a free Airbnb, but with responsibilities, because you're usually taking care of pets, taking care of someone's property. It's not like, oh, you're just slapping on a $200 or whatever Airbnb cleaning fee and everybody takes care of it. Like, you got to take care of the house, but the lodging is free. And so it goes both ways, where we don't have to pay them to come sit for us. They're doing it because they get a free vacation out of it. So we've utilized this service once before while we had kids, and we utilized it again. We're probably going to utilize it again in the summer. So that's part one. And then the second part that is more relatable to the people without pets is the logistics for the kids. So as I mentioned, my mother-in-law came with us to St. Augustine, right? And while she was in St. Augustine, she isn't as mobile as my wife and I are, right? Mm-hmm. She, just gets tired. She's a little bit older, and that's totally fine. So by that, she volunteered quite a bit, since we had to drive separately in separate cars. She had her own vehicle with 2 car seats in it, several times to take the kids home, put them to bed, and let us have a date night. And that's awesome. And I love that.
That's
and
great. That's awesome.
But then when my wife is going out of town, and this becomes like her taking care of the kids versus like we need to figure out if she can feasibly do this and like stuff. Then it becomes like, hey, I know you're planning on giving us all this like free childcare while we're in St. Augustine, but also like we need a lot more. And my mom, who did not come on the St. Augustine trip, stepped up as well and helped us out a lot. But there's a lot of logistics that go into it. You know, like, okay, getting up in the morning, what is my daughter's normal routine? She has to be at school at like 7:10 in the morning. She likes to eat breakfast at school with her friends. And so she needs to be there super early. And my mom is retired. And you rarely can get her anywhere by 9 a.m. these days. She used to do it when I was a kid, you know, get me up, get me ready. She knows how to do it. But it was kind of like, hey, are you okay with that? And she was like, yeah, I can figure it out. And so she was super valuable there. But we had to, in addition to packing for our entire St. Augustine vacation, we had to pack for Atlanta because my wife didn't want to come back that one Sunday night and crash here at our house because somebody was staying here, like essentially a stranger that has been vetted and with a background check and everything. But we're like, you know, you're not going to come crash back at our house. So we had to pack everything for 2 weeks to get out of here. And that meant we also had to pack things for dance practice, gymnastics class, basketball, the kids' school clothes for the next week, and relay all of that stuff to my mom. And my mother-in-law takes care of my son during the week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she does some of the pickups. And we had to go, okay, every little pickup and drop off from practice to this, and every handover that feels like muscle memory on a normal week. How do we coordinate that when we've got new parties involved and people covering us? And are we going to be able to do this? And who's going to have to step up? And it's a lot. And I can't thank my mom and my mother-in-law enough for what they did. But, you know, it basically turns into, we had to have a sit down, like 30-minute session with my mom to go over all the details, and then a follow-up email in writing between all the parties to make sure everything was covered and all the details were there. And it turns into a little bit of a project on its own. And there are definitely parts of the time where I go, man, is this even worth it? Like, this is so convoluted. So it's a lot different. I will say, when it's a solo trip, like you're going to take, or like I'm going to take in May, or what I thought I was going to take to Atlanta initially, but it is so much because you still have a parent there, you know, and the mom or the dad or whoever can just adapt to not having their partner around, but asking the kids to stay at a different place and do all those things is a bit.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, I looked a little weird a second ago. My wife ran up freaking out because music just started playing downstairs, and it's because she forgot that we had an Alexa down there. And I guess somebody must have said something on the virtual book club she's currently on. So music just started playing, and she ran up here freaking out, wondering if, you know, someone invaded the house. And I said, "Did you say, Alexa, turn off?" And that apparently worked. I just got the text, but I was listening to your story, Alex, but it was just very funny.
You're fine.
Yeah. So with that, which happened to lighten me up a bit. So I am going to do my best to not show some true emotion that Alex is aware of, but the logistics of this upcoming wedding that my wife and I are going to in 8 days has not been as easy to logistically prepare for as one would think. We are going to a wedding that is a 45-minute drive away, but because, you know, weddings end late, and we plan on imbibing some delicious beverages and dancing and eating and having fun, we planned to spend the night. That normally wouldn't be a problem. So, you know, we asked my mother-in-law to take care of the kids one night. That's it. She's done it before. She's put the kids to bed before. She's stayed over many times. But she told us she couldn't do it. Not that she has other plans, but just that she couldn't do it. So that's could be its own podcast, but we then had to ask two friends who normally babysit in a pinch. They've got family in town, so they can't. We then asked our if you remember the trip that I took about a year ago with the other family, where we brought the aunt as well, and she was like the auntie for everybody. We actually asked her, since the girls know her and like playing with her. She also already had plans. So then we are actually going to have a play date with one of my friends on Saturday, who has never met the girls, but is really excited to babysit the girls just to see if they are meshing. So we are on not a fourth string, but a fourth choice babysitter, just so we can both attend a wedding that is an hour away. And as you can tell from the way I'm speaking, those of you who are loyal listeners for the last 3 seasons, I'm a little peeved that we've had to get to this point. I forgot to say, we also asked my sister-in-law, unavailable, my brother-in-law, no response. But regardless, the point is we are doing our best to try to make this happen. And when the non-simple thing, it's not simple, but when the essential piece of childcare is kind of up in the air, it makes the rest of the planning difficult and kind of rough around the edges to talk about, because both my wife and I don't see completely eye to eye on how this is playing out. So there's a lot going on there. But with regard to my upcoming bachelor party that I'm attending at the end of April, I originally wasn't planning on going. I had talked about the instability of my workplace right now, so I was a little hesitant to go ahead and book a round trip flight for even just 6 weeks out. But ultimately, one crazy story meant that I won't get into here, but resulted in me being able to go, and I am going. So now there's the logistics of that. I'll be going on Friday morning before the girls wake up is the flight, because I got to connect in Dallas, and then I will be flying back, not on a red eye, but one of those flights that lands shortly after midnight, just to get home. So I won't see my wife from when we say goodnight on Thursday to when she and I get home from work on Monday. As of right now, my plan is to still go to work that Monday, but at least take the kids to school on Monday morning. But the logistics there are really the fact that, since I tend to handle mornings, my wife's got to take a little bit of leave on Friday morning so that she can get the girls to school and not be late for work. Then there's, I am out of commission for ballet, and so ballet on Saturday, gymnastics on Sunday morning, and then gymnastics and then soccer on Sunday afternoon. Go Whale Sharks, greatest team of all time. I'm the head coach. We can get into that as well. But so there's a lot of logistics playing there with just having 2 kids when one normally stays home for these activities. Now my wife has to go to these with both kids, where one is usually napping. So it just kind of changes the whole dynamic of the weekend. It's not just, one parent's gone, everything's the same. The younger kid is now just going to be luggage for the older kids' activities.
And that's tough. And luckily, I think it's only a couple days, right? I try to tell myself whenever we have to do something weird for a couple days. We had this a little bit in St. Augustine, and we went camping at the end of that week. I don't think I'd mentioned that. Maybe I did, but we went camping at the end of that week. And when we had probably 3 or 4 days within there where my son just didn't nap, whether because we didn't think we could get him down at the campground where activities were going on and we don't have a white noise machine, or he just didn't fall asleep in the car, or he didn't fall asleep for us or my mother-in-law, or we were just out and about and we just kind of said, all right, we're going to skip the nap and deal with the consequences. And it's not the healthiest thing. It's not something we want to do on the daily, but we also are like, this is 1 week. We can kind of do anything for 1 week as long as we don't turn it into a habit, and be okay. And so hopefully your youngest will respond in kind that, yeah, it may be tough and it may make sense both for her health and for your wife's mental health to move bedtime up a little bit or something like that, just to make up for it a little bit. But, check the sleep research on that, what the best option is there. Don't take my word.
Yeah. Our kids have done fine missing naps before. I think it's more just one of the reasons these last 2 soccer seasons, I've gone and my wife stayed home with the younger one while she naps, is because when we tried to take the younger one to be a spectator, she just kept running onto the field. And when she's 2 with a bunch of 5-year-olds and balls everywhere, it just becomes, unsafe. So, that was how we ended up there. So I'm sure my wife will figure something out, but I obviously will help her plan that before I go. But there's always the thought of a trip can always be extremely exciting, but then there's the responsibility aspect of it, where kind of like when you take off from work, and in the episodes I've just been listening to, I was listening to us talk about how when we were you and I both went through like a huge sick streak in our house around the same time with our kids getting sick, and we were talking about how when you have the ability to telework, you fight through that sickness that you just don't want to infect your coworkers, but you are able to work, versus when it's just so bad that you can't even do that. And that's when you want to save your sick leave. But the reason we work through it is because we don't want to dump these responsibilities on other people. And the same thing happens as parents when one of you's out of the picture and you've now dumped your parenting responsibilities on the other. So I thought it was just really interesting as I'm about to embark on 2 different kinds of trips in the next month. So,
yeah. And I think that's one thing that my wife and I had to sort of get over, like, for lack of a better term. Like, we both take trips, right?
Mm-hmm.
We both take solo trips. This is the second one that I've taken in the last 4 months for work.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, she ended up coming to Atlanta where I was for work herself,
Mm-hmm.
but she was game to take care of the kids, and just handle it. We don't have quite as many hurdles,
Right.
The mornings, like, it's not going to affect her ability to get to work,
Mm-hmm.
to take on those
Right.
responsibilities, especially now that she started a new job that's much more 9 to 5. Like, she quite often comes to the gym with me and my son, and also does daycare drop off. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she is going to be gone for a week this summer, right? I'm gone for a long weekend in May. My dad and I are going to the PGA Championship, but then my wife and her mom are going on an Alaskan cruise for a week, and I'm happy for her. And it's just sort of one of those where, like, I'll kind of figure it out. And it's a little bit different. Honestly, it's maybe even a little bit better that hers is during the summer, because then my daughter has more extended care, because we pulled her out of after school at the Y. So she's moved to being picked up at school at 2:00. And so that is sort of a thing where I have a couple of days where I have meetings that, like, I can't get out for the 15 minutes it takes me to do it. And so it is nice to have her taking that trip then. But I think that's also a segue into sort of the unexpected upsides, right? Whether you're traveling without the kids, both of you, like you guys are for the wedding, or like my wife and I did to Atlanta, or traveling solo. I think there's some unexpected upsides, or maybe even expected. The first one I'll say is sleep, right? Like we slept this morning because I didn't have any like early conference commitments, and my wife and her coworker, we like had dinner with them last night, and he was like, yeah, I'm probably going to be a little bit later into the office tomorrow. Like, we didn't have a crazy late night. We said goodbye to them at like 7:30 or something, and we were back in by 9:30. But he's like, I'll probably just be a little bit later. And so we slept until 7:30. That doesn't happen very often without kids interrupting us. And so that's nice. And like I just mentioned, we were able to go out to dinner and have some drinks and just explore the city of Atlanta a little bit, which was nice.
Nice.
And those are the kind of things, like those little date nights and feeling like, a little bit like we were back in our 20s living in New York, or you and your wife living in a big city before you had kids, where it's like, you want to go out for drinks, just go. Right. You don't have to worry about, diaper bags, when the kids have diapers, or worrying about picking a restaurant that's good for kids, or making sure that you get back for a reasonable bedtime, or any of that stuff. You just go do what you want to do. And so that's one of the biggest things, and not having the burden of the day-to-day schedule, right? I had the peace of mind that my mom and my mother-in-law could handle it. And I wouldn't have to, I can't do anything about ballet. It was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything about basketball practice. It was out of my hands. They had to figure it out. We gave them all the information we could. They could text us, they could email us, all that kind of stuff with questions, but I couldn't actually like physically do anything. And so just that mental load, not having that, whether we're on a guy's trip, and it's like, I love reading stories to my kids, but like not feeling like I have to do bedtime right now because it's bedtime and I've got to do it. Right. And I'm not going to lie and say like every single night I am in the mood to do it and that I'm hyped up as I should be. So those little things definitely add up to being a nice experience. On the flip side, when you are like I was at a work conference, it's not necessarily like as restorative as it needs to be. You are kind of going, using a lot of your mental energy. And so we got back tonight just in time for dinner with our kids. We had dinner. My mother-in-law cooked dinner for all of us, and we ate at their house and then brought the kids back. But it was just like, we're unpacking our car, which has 2 weeks worth of stuff and camping gear and all sorts of things, and trying to get that all in and get the kids ready. And I was like, yeah, I didn't miss this. I didn't miss this chaos of the evening.
Right. Very much. Right. For sure. Yeah.
And trying to get back. I think that's one of the biggest struggles is like getting back to the routine. Like, I'm like, yep, we may stay up late chatting. I'm getting up at 6 a.m. because I got to walk the dog, and then I got to get breakfast ready, and then I got to take my daughter to school, and then I got to get to the gym. And like, it's back to the routine that I have been out of for 13 days, basically. So
yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, it's a little bit.
It'll be testing the muscle memory there.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Speaking of testing muscles, would you like to work on the dad bod with me?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So as you can see, what does my little tagline say there, Alex?
Guy on a streak.
That is because I am a guy. Yes, I am going streaking. Again, that's for our OnlyFans subscribers only, hence the name. But I'm a guy on a streak. I recently joined. When you last heard us, I was talking about, that was 2 weeks ago, even though you heard us a week ago. It was recorded 2 weeks ago. And I mentioned how I was joining the gym at the government agency I work at. and my membership started that following Monday from when you heard me. Well, it technically started Friday, but whatever. On Monday was day one of what is now a 9-day consecutive work streak. I have decided that if I'm going to the office, I'm going to the gym at the office. So since then, I have been to the gym 9 straight work days in a row. Tomorrow it's going to be 10. When you and I last spoke, I had weighed in at 200.2. And then last week, when you guys heard me, but it wasn't a true episode, I weighed in at 197.6. So I lost just under 3 pounds right off the top, just from getting back into exercising. I'm 197.8 tonight. So I did gain 0.2 pounds, but the way I look in the mirror, even now, just 2 weeks in, I do look a little better. Like and I'm not just, that first couple pounds, like I'm definitely seeing just the way my shirt fits and the way my pants fit. So, I'm hoping to go, I'm hoping to keep this going strong. If I'm in the office, I want to be in the gym. And, I'm using ChatGPT to create myself a 1 hour, or not a 1 hour workout, but basically I got to be from leaving my office to get into the gym to back at my desk. I'm trying to keep that within an hour, and that's stretching, cardio, lifting, shower, changing back, all that. So, I'm feeling pretty good. Not losing at the rate I want to lose, but I'm just getting back into it. So feeling pretty good.
Yeah. And there's, and this is always the thing with the once a week weigh-ins. Like there's so many factors that can, manipulate it. And that's why a longer sample size is always key. But I mean, you do the right things and you'll see the right results. And I know we've chatted about this on the side, but and I'd say this to anybody, I said this to Ethan, and I wanted to share this with just anybody. Like Ethan sent me the workout plan because he knows that I'm very into sort of making my own lifting plans and different things, and spend a lot of time consuming that content. That doesn't mean I'm a super buff guy or anything like that, but I'm interested in it. And so he sent it to me, and I said, honestly, where you're at right now, knowing what your resistance training has been like since COVID, maybe before, like you were lifting at home, you had limited weights, you had to do super high reps to get anywhere close to fatigue with those limited weights. And like, I remember you in college and post-grad and things like that, pretty strong guy. And I would guess that some of what you're feeling and what you're seeing both on the scale and in the mirror is the result of, I don't remember the exact technical term for it, but the body's elasticity and muscle memory of having muscle. That like once you have gained muscle, if you lose it, it is easier to reclaim it because your body remembers what that state is like. You're not trying to teach it sort of new neural pathways or whatever to build those muscle fibers. And you're probably seeing that. Some extreme examples of this, and I'm not suggesting anybody follows any of his protocols, but like Christian Bale is well noted for this, where he, did Batman Begins, and then he absolutely slimmed down. I want to say it was for The Machinist. And I mean, he was skin and bones. And then like a year later, he did The Dark Knight. Right. And so he's pretty buff for those Batman movies, and like 120 pounds of skin and bones for The Machinist. And part of what helped him get back there is, being a Hollywood millionaire and having access to high level trainers and high level diets, and maybe steroids. I'm not going to sugarcoat that and say that these people that are getting paid millions of dollars are adverse to injecting themselves with something. I'm not accusing anybody, but also his muscle memory of like, I know what it's, my body saying, I know what it's like to be bigger like this. And I think that's probably at least some of what you're experiencing is your muscle growth is happening. It's spiking back up because it's like, hey, I remember what to do here. And if you gaining that muscle mass, you might have lost fat, which is the goal, right? Like the number on the scale isn't really what we're really chasing. It's a body fat level that we feel comfortable with and look good with, right? Because I think the same weight can look different on a lot of different people, a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. And I even now seeing that, you know, I gained 0.2 pounds back. I know some places I can cut. For example, you know, free ad for anybody who finds a promotion code for the Panera Unlimited Sip Club. But turns out now that I'm back at the office 5 days a week, there's actually a Panera like 50 yards from my office. So I get in the morning, go to my desk, work on some things, walk over to that Panera, get myself coffee since I don't have time to drink any in the morning. And then usually in the afternoon, I get their passion papaya green tea. And that right there is, I think, the most delicious thing on the menu. It's a treat for myself, but it is, and since I don't get ice, it's essentially in a large cup, 280 calories of sweetened green tea. So I could cut that, but it brings me joy. So I don't know if I will.
Yeah.
But
so. I think it's important not to cut the things that bring you a lot of joy. I think there are ways that, you know, you can modify things, you know, if you want to, on different things, but, you know, doing the right things consistently and working out's not going to bring you all your weight loss that you want. You do have to get the calories where you need them to be. But I've heard plenty of reputable fitness influencers, experts, what have you, basically say like your goal, if you're trying to build sustainability, should be to lose weight with as many calories as possible. Right. Like not dip down to 1,200 calories or something that is just completely unsustainable, depriving yourself, creating, you know, food issues, disordered eating, all that kind of stuff, but trying to find the highest amount of calories you can eat while still losing weight so that you can enjoy the things you want to enjoy, but make sure you're eating for your goals. I will be honest, I did not weigh in this week. I actually skipped to the gym this morning for the first time all week. I was at a conference, but I was staying at a pretty nice hotel that had, by hotel gym standards, pretty solid setup. You know, like they had cable machines and TRX bands and a Smith machine. For those that don't know, it's barbell on a vertical track. So it can't really go side to side, but it can go up and down. So you can do squats, deadlifts, different things. It just, you don't have any, just goes up and down.
It makes working out very safe.
It makes working out very safe. You know, and it's one of those, but I was able to utilize that. I got in on Sunday night, checked out the gym, went back the next morning, did it again. Then I went back the next day. And then the next day I had to sort of do a little bit more recovery corrective kind of stuff. Cause I was like, okay, that's like 3 workouts in a day and a half essentially. And my body's feeling it. My nervous system was feeling it, right? Like I could tell by the last few sets on that third day that I'm like, I'm giving it my all, and my all is kind of crap right now. So friendly reminder, if you are, whether to you, Ethan, or to listeners out there, embarking on a fitness journey and trying to get into the gym and your body is sending you a message and you're like, it's helpful to listen to it. Take a day off. It doesn't have to be a week, you know, but take a day. And I mean, what I did is I still walked on the treadmill and got my heart rate up. And then, you know, I did some more stretching and I worked on some things like external rotations to strengthen my shoulder that sometimes gives me problems, and other things like that. And so I did something productive for my body. It just wasn't high stress, like barbell lifting or anything where I was going to failure. So I didn't weigh in, but I will weigh in the morning. I will give that update next week as well as what I did, because I am curious how vacationing went for me. I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't really track my calories very well, but I did try to be mindful of what I was eating. You know, I think it's very easy when you're at a conference and when you're on vacation to sort of just go into vacation mode. But when we were on vacation, we did have an Airbnb. And so we were in control of our food. And like, I specifically went to Walgreens and got protein powder so I could have that in addition to like the oatmeal that we had packed in the morning, and kind of had my normal breakfast, and like tried to still pick like high protein things that I thought I would enjoy when I was going out to eat. And when I was at the hotel was like, it had a paid buffet, but it also had a like little market there, 24 hours, coffee shop and food. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get the chicken sausage burrito and like a Core Power like milkshake that's like 26 grams of protein, 170 calories. And I love those things. I love Fairlife milk, plug for them. But, you know, I'm like, I'm just going to get, 50 grams of protein just in my body in the morning so that I'm not tempted to eat a whole plate of like the baked mac and cheese that they're going to serve at lunch. That's kind of mediocre because it's hotel catering. That I'm like, it's not going to satisfy me that much, but, and trying to be mindful of that. And then a couple times when I was on my own for meals, instead of going back to that market in the lobby, I would find places in the area and I go, okay, which one's the furthest walk? And I'd walk to that, like I'd pick it based on that. Like, I want pizza. Okay, I got pizza the first night, and I got an individual sized pizza from a Mellow Mushroom because it was like a 20-minute walk each way. And I was like, I'm not using that to justify the food. I'm getting in my steps while getting the food I want.
Right.
So I'm getting something good for my body and getting the food I want, and nothing else. If there hadn't been one 15 minutes away and the only option was 5, I still would have gotten the pizza because that's what I wanted to eat. And whatever.
It's kind of like when I a couple of years ago traveled to Austin for work, and my hotel was a 3-mile walk from Franklin's Barbecue. And I knew I was about to eat 6,000 calories of barbecue. I knew I'd walk 3 miles each way. And, it was just, that did that negate? It absolutely not. But I felt like better about it. I wasn't just sitting around
you feel better, but I think that it's important to like not turn it into a downward spiral. If you look at them as like independent actions, like your movement is to make your body perform better, and the calories in, calories out, or calories in is to make your body look better, to lose the weight you want to lose. It's like, don't let one go just because you may not have been having your best time at the other. I will say the biggest thing for me, and why I'm sure I probably have gained some weight, is between the date nights that I mentioned with my wife, going out to dinners with like contractors we're working with, different people at the conference or parties. I didn't consume a lot more food. I was good on the food. It was the drinks. Like, I'd have 2 or 3 drinks several nights. And this year, I don't know, it's been a conscious effort, but it's been a tracking my calories effort of like, I might have a beer with dinner if I haven't had a lot of calories for the day, but I'm rarely having like 2-3 drinks in an evening. And those do really add up, especially when you're, maybe not necessarily go to a Mexican restaurant, a nice Mexican restaurant, and they got this like mezcal drink. And I'm like, I don't know exactly what's in this, but it's definitely more than a whiskey neat or an IPA that I would drink at home. That's okay. But I might have, you want another? Well, everybody else is getting another. Yeah, I might have another.
But it adds up. If everything's a caloric number, when the difference between water and a beer, or a water and a light beer for that matter, is about 100 calories.
Well, and I will say, up until today, I was feeling really like bloated and puffy, and so it's also one of those things where it's, if you're changing up your diet, because I am pretty consistent with like what I eat throughout the week, on a macro level and a nutrient content level, when you go off of those rails a little bit, you sort of start to feel it in your gut, and you feel a little bloated and you feel a little puffy, and you're going to step on the scale, and that number may be way higher than the, you know, because again, you have to overeat by 3,500 calories to gain 1 pound of actual body mass.
Right.
And like, I'm not doing that on a daily basis, but after 5 days, the scale could shoot up by 5 pounds because of the bloating and things. And it's, you know, and so that's why, as I said to you and to everybody else, like the consistent measuring to know like, okay, this is a blip, not a trend.
Right.
It can be super helpful for your mental health. So I'm curious to see what it is tomorrow, but I'm also curious to see, you know, how drastic the number might change next week, just after a week of sort of getting back to stasis.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's great. Before we go, everybody, a couple shout outs. I want to wish my wife, well, first, I want to wish my dad, one of our 2 most loyal listeners, a happy birthday. It is my father's birthday this Sunday. And I also would like to wish Alex a happy birthday. Our very own is his birthday is Monday. And like I mentioned before, my wife, aka my marriage Alex, her birthday is also on Monday. And the reason that she is my marriage Alex and Alex is not my podcasting wife is because I met Alex first. So, you know, first come first for naming rights. That's how it works. So
yeah, and I'll give a shout out to my brother-in-law, who I don't know if he knows this podcast exists, but his birthday is on Sunday. So happy birthday to him. Yeah,
your brother-in-law my dad?
I don't think so. But,
okay, good to know.
I don't think he has any children, at least that he knows of.
Boom. Work on that, dad bod.
Just kidding. If he does know it exists and he does listen to this, I'm kidding. Right. He'll probably get it.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Happy birthday, Alex.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.